All right, this is Patrick Rogers, and today we have the privilege to have Dan Eckelman on the show. And Dan is the CEO of the Professional Speakers Bureau. Welcome to the show, Dan.
How you doing? Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So Dan has been a professional speaker and a real estate investor for over 25 plus years and has spoken to over 1 million people. He speaks on stages with the likes of Jordan Belfort, Tony Blair, Suzy Orman, Robert Kiyosaki. So some real heavy hitters, some real big names. And he's also one of Trump's top speakers for Trump University. Dan actually bought the Professional Speakers Bureau just 5 years ago. And the Professional Speakers Bureau connects venues needing speakers to a wide variety of very talented and high profile speakers. And they book hundreds of speakers every year. So again, Dan, great to have you. Before we dive into your journey and the Professional Speakers Bureau, what's one interesting fact that not many people know about you?
Well, one interesting fact, that's a good question. A lot of interesting facts. A lot of people don't know about me. But, I'm an executive producer. Not a lot of people know that.
Oh, that's cool.
We have a movie called Don't Shoot, I'm the Guitar Man, which is called Guitar Man. We kind of shortened the sentence, followed by the book Don't Shoot, I'm the Guitar Man by Buzzy Martin. And we produced a movie out of that. We've been to 15 film festivals, won 13 awards, and
Wow.
start distribution of that soon. So Hollywood's kind of my playground a little bit there.
Ah, very cool. So it's a little bit of a side passion going on for you.
You got it.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, congrats on that and best of luck on that release. So tell us about your journey, man. I know there's going to be, I'm so excited to dig into your stories.
Yeah, sure. Well, I guess to start out with graduating from the Ohio State University for football with a degree in law. But, heading down that path, 120,000 in debt and student loans, working for some law firm to put a cap on my salary was not my path. So I got into real estate. I thought I could work what I want, when I want, do what I want, make what I want. But I realized pretty quickly it wasn't the brokers making the money, it was the investors making the money. And at the time, I didn't know how to do that with no money down as I know how to today. So I ended up, starting a factoring company with another local attorney, factoring of invoices, or what's called accounts receivable financing. We buy invoices at a discount from a company to keep their cash flow running. And so they can pay purchase orders, buy new materials and equipment and products and fulfill even their payroll.
Right.
So we built that up pretty nicely. A couple million a month for a small law firm. We're pretty happy with that. Kept getting calls from brokers all over the country because I put my name in every single funding source directory that would come across my desk. And these brokers would call me all over the country. And they kept talking about the Open University out of Orlando. So I called them up and said, who are you guys? Getting a lot of calls, deals from your brokers. They said, we teach brokers how to broker what are called privately held notes, like invoice financing, structural settlement lawsuits, biaticals, insurance policies, mortgage notes, business loans, lotteries, sports contracts. There's about 60 income streams like that where people are getting paid money over time, but they want a lump sum of cash today at a discount. It's called a privately held note. They teach brokers how to find those deals and send them to funding companies like mine to fund the deal. I said, hey, thanks for all the deals and the brokers again. They said, by the way, we have a training class in the United States and Canada every single weekend. Would you like to teach? We'll give you half of a day of the 3 days to talk about invoice financing. I said, hey, if you get more deals, absolutely. So they threw me down to the Marriott Anatole down in Dallas, Texas, 20 some years ago. And back in the day when it has overhead projectors with the bulbs on them, the transparencies. And so they kept booking me every single weekend. And I said, they give me half of a day of the 3 days, like I said. And after about a few months, they said, hey, you're a great speaker. We'd like you to speak on the front end. I said, well, what's the front end? They said, well, we'll pick a city like New York City. And we'll go 2 weeks prior to a training. We'll flash the TV with a 30-minute infomercial all week long to put butts in the seats, as we say in the speaking world. And they said, you'll go there and you'll hit the north, south, east, west side of the city, do 1 show Sunday, 2 Monday, 2 Tuesday, 1 Wednesday, speak for 90 minutes at each show on privately held notes and sign them up in the training class. That's how you're getting that you're teaching a speaker procedure. I said, that sounds like fun. Let's do that. So little did I know what I had accepted, because for the next 13 years, 50 weeks out of the year, every week but Christmas, I'm on a plane 4 days a week, 6 pieces a week on privately held notes.
It's a grind. Yeah.
I was in my early 30s, though, pulling in 500, 600, 700,000, because selling from the stage is the highest paid profession. We can make that kind of money for a 90-minute talk. It's the highest paid profession by far. So pulling in all kinds of cash, just making a great living doing it. It just created a massive speaking career for me. And then, when I'm back in Ohio, well, I get involved in a lot of different avenues, such as real estate investing, of course. I also have a 2-day training class called Powerful Presentations, where I teach people how to speak and give a presentation. Because at some point in business, you're going to have to learn how to speak if you like it or not. Period. You
Right.
got to learn.
Yeah.
So we in that class, we cover body, intro, close, and incident action benefit, the IAB formula, power of storytelling, and enthusiasm, impact. A lot to that class, a lot of depth to it. So it's a fantastic class. And also, when I'm back in Ohio, when I'm out traveling, I get back into the law, do a lot of talks on estate planning. I know that and signing people up for revocable living trusts, which is very important to protect your assets, to pass them on to your heirs. And when I was out there speaking and doing a lot of events for Trump, as you said, he brought me on board to speak on what are called tax lien certificates many years ago on property taxes, because I back into real estate after I got done with the privately held notes. I started speaking on real estate back into what I know. And Trump called me and said, "Would you like to come on board at Trump University and speak on tax liens?" And I didn't know a whole lot about them, but I learned very quickly and started investing very quickly. And tax liens are property taxes that you owe if you own a piece of property in the United States.
Right.
Pay your property taxes when they're due. Get a certified letter from the county stating you're in default and a lien's been put on your property. The county takes that property tax debt and turns it into what's called a tax lien certificate and sells it in the open market to any investor that wants to buy it. Anybody in the world can invest in tax lien certificates. Right. You can earn 24 to 36% return on your money, a different interest rate mandated by the state in every state, backed by the federal government, collateralized by real estate. So I said, I'll speak on tax liens. So I was doing an event for Trump out in Los Angeles. An investor from New Zealand was there. He said, "Hey, this is phenomenal. Can we do this from New Zealand?" So you can buy tax liens, get online and buy them like we do. 1,000 counties in the United States. Anybody can do this. So he says, "Can you bring your talk to New Zealand?" So I left Trump organization and I private labeled a tax lien course with another attorney down in Texas. I went to New Zealand, did a 14-city tour in 14 days, north to South Island, and sold over $1 million of my tax lien training course, a 2-day course. Then I knew I had something on my own and internationally without Trump's name or without a branding behind it. Then I kind of just took it internationally, went to Sydney with it, sold another $500,000 and just took it all over the world. Just big international runs there. And then one of my students from New Zealand was in London at a property meet, and they called me. "Any one of your students is here. They made $145,000, 32 days out of your tax lien course." I said, "I'm sure they did." I said, "Come to London." So I flew to London. They put me all over England, which was fantastic because that's actually where we got tax lien certificate investing from, is from Great Britain.
Right.
So we call it a charge instead of a lien. And so they put me all over England to speak. And that's when I met Richard and Veronica Tan of Success Resources out of Singapore, who was in London at the same time at a Robert Kiyosaki event that I was speaking at. And they're the largest of Success Resources. They were the largest seminar company in the world. And they became international promoters. They're the ones who put me on stage with Tony Blair and Robert Kiyosaki and Jordan Belfort, Mark Victor Hansen and Suzy Orman and Robert Allen, Laurel Langmeyer, Spike Hummer, biggest stages in the world, biggest speakers in the world, speaking to 5, 10, 20,000 people all over the world. Big international runs there. And so that's kind of brought me up to today. I just had an event I participated in, attended, which was last month in Brooklyn with Steve Forbes, and getting ready to just did a webinar with the Money Show and getting ready to do another event with Steve Forbes in the Money Show in Vegas coming up at the end of April.
Got it. Wow, that's pretty darn impressive, man. Thanks for sharing all of that.
Yeah, sure. Good ride.
So you kind of it's been a grind. Is that what you said?
Good ride.
Oh, been a ride. So you alluded to a couple things before that one of the highest paid professions is being able to sell from the stage, and you had talked about some of the high level, like if somebody's going to give a speech, right? Is there a certain you have it broken down? I know you mentioned like introduction. That's something else for how you break down every speech that you give.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, you got to kind of back it up. If you want to get in the speaking world, you have to figure out what kind of speaker do you want to be. Product sales speaker, you want to be a keynote speaker, which is different. Product sales, you're selling a product from the stage, like a training class or training course or consulting of some sort. And keynote speakers, they speak on topics like leadership, or Chase Bank might call them up and say, "Hey, we call us up and say, we need a speaker on leadership." I'll send them a few profiles to look at. That's keynote speaking,
Right.
whether it's
Right.
communication or leadership or sales or marketing or branding or customer service, whatever it might be. That's keynote. That's a step down from product sales speaking. Because product sales speaking, you can speak to 5,000-10,000 people and just make hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, in one
Sure.
show.
Sure. Sure.
And then there's keynote, but then there's also instructional. There's teaching. There's coaching. There's consulting. There are many different lecturing. There's many different styles of speaking that you can get involved with, and obviously the main ones are going to be your product sales speaking, and keynote speaking, as far as a profession goes.
Yeah, and I think it's important because there's a lot of CEOs that are going to be listening to us, and a lot of leaders, and the fact that you made that statement, it's very true. I think Warren Buffett even said that the best thing you can learn how to do is speak in front of people, and so as CEOs, to really get their name out in their company, a lot of times the best ones are out there traveling and speaking in front of associations and everything else.
Yeah, and back to your question. So yeah, figure out what type of speaker you want to be. Then kind of set up your speech, accordingly, and then go out and market. That's all it is marketing to get gigs. And then once you have a gig, you speak on it, and then you make the money according to, keynote speakers can make anywhere from, $1,000 to $1 million. I mean, I think
Right, it just depends on
I mean, you get someone like a Richard Branson or someone like that might charge up to 500,000 a gig, something like that. But then you figure out what type of speaker you want to be. You build your speech, and then you market yourself, like I said. But then you've got to learn how to speak. And depending, the best thing to know what to do is speaking is know who your audience is first. That's number one. Know your audience. And then you know how to talk to them and what to say. Your speech is going to be different if you're going to speak into a group full of engineers, as opposed to attorneys, as opposed to doctors, as opposed to first graders, as opposed to college kids, high school kids, CEOs, as opposed to as opposed to global, speaking in Europe or Asia or Germany, as opposed to the United States or even Canada, or even speaking to elderly as opposed to the younger group. Even difference between speaking in New York or New Jersey, when I can talk as fast as I want to because I'm a fast talker, or got to go to the South, Mississippi, Louisiana, you got to slow it down a little bit. It takes them 90 minutes to watch your show 60 minutes. So you got to slow it down a little bit, So you got to know your style of speaking as well. And then you got to build your speeches, and that's all based upon, you got to cover your fear of public speaking anxiety. You got to get that all out of the way. And that comes with training. And then you build a speech. And whatever anybody says, it comes down to one thing when it comes to speaking. It's just storytelling. That's all it is. If you can tell a story, you can be a speaker. And that's all that it takes. That's number one thing as far as the style of speaking, because building a speech is the science of it. The delivery of it is the art. So don't confuse the two. You've got to build it first and know your audience, and then storytelling. And you build that after you understand impact and enthusiasm and storytelling and creating an IAB formula, which is incident, action, benefit. So an incident is telling your story, testimony, evidence, or example. That's your incident. A story, testimony, evidence, or example. There's your incident. And then you have to give them an action that you want them to take once you tell your story. Otherwise, it's just a story. Who cares? What's that to do with anything? You're going to talk to me about communication in the workplace. You told me a story about your vacation to Hawaii. Who cares? You got to tie it in somehow. And the way you tie it is, now that I've told you my story, here's the action I want you to take. Now, if you stop at that, then you've created resentment. You're strong arming them, telling them what to do. So you have to add a benefit. Now you add a benefit, then they're going to take your action.
Yeah. So that's amazing. I mean, been doing this for 25 plus years. You've got it down to a science and an art, and you actually help anybody who wants to get into speaking, or, particularly, like I was saying, like if you're a CEO, because that's not something that's necessarily a strong point. Just because I've got a company and I've got it to 30 or 40, 50 people, I don't really know how, as the CEO, to be that public speaker. So I'd urge anybody, if you're thinking about getting out there, that the amount of impact that you have in front of an audience will help really drive the success of your company. And so being very good at becoming a speaker it makes a lot of sense.
100%. I mean, you can sell your products, you can sell your services, your consulting. The biggest money making or the opportunity in the speaking business is not the keynote. It's not the front end. It's not selling from the stage. It's the back end.
Mm.
When you can upsell the clients into any sort of teaching, coaching, training, consulting, or advanced support package or training packages, then you can upsell them, because once you have them, and now they buy into your advice, because you're there for a reason. Information is the greatest commodity in the world. You've got it, they don't. That's what they're paying for. You deliver that to them, and they don't want to stop there. And it's not you necessarily upselling them, because if you sit there and you talk to, stand up on stage and talk to somebody about communication in the workplace for 90 minutes, okay, anybody can do that. But wow, how far will that get them with productivity and progress in the workplace? They want more information from you. They're going to ask you for more information. Then you create support packages and back-end training programs.
Well, the story part of it is not something that really comes natural. But like you said, the art of it. I mean, it's our natural tendency is just to tell the facts. This is what I know, and blah blah blah. And we don't think to tie in the story to really relate and allow them to put themselves in that position.
Absolutely. And many speakers treat the speaking business like a one-off. Give me a gig here, give me a gig. What's my next gig? Where's my next gig? Like a singer does. But that's not who we are. We have information. The information that we've accumulated over the years, that we've accumulated with our experience and our success on communication or branding or sales or customer service, whatever the topic might be, or sales or whatever it might be, then 90 minutes isn't, we know more than 90 minutes of information to be an expert in the field. And so again, that's where the back end takes place in that opportunity, because they want more information, and that's just, you can keep building it and building and building it.
Yeah, fantastic. I'd recommend for any CEO out there who's going to be speaking in front of somebody, give Dan a call and take his course. So awesome, man. So in our pre-call, one of the things it asked you, what are some of the things you're most proud of as a CEO, and some of the things you've learned over the years? And you brought up a couple things. One is really knowing your competition. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I've bought so many businesses. I've been in many different industries in my life. I've always tried to stick towards investments or finance, real estate, but bought and sold some businesses along the way. I used to own a moving company. Like I said, I own a factoring company, factoring of invoices. I've owned a number of companies, and just you got to know your competition. That's the first thing I did when I bought the bureau. I got on Google. I typed in speakers bureaus, and I went 5 pages deep on Google. Most of them were not even business anymore. Kickback emails and disconnected phone numbers, and my resume is pretty fantastic. So I applied for every one of them. Most didn't call me back. A few did and said I'm overqualified, and one of them actually copied all my information from my website and put me on their bureau. I never even spoke to them before. So it's not an industry where you're gonna have a lot of competition, but you got to know who they are, because the 5 to 10 that are really, really out there working it every day, that's who you got to know, what they're doing and how they're doing it. And just know your competition. I don't care what business it is. I mean, it just amazes me when you go into business. I don't care if you're going to buy a car at a dealership, or if you're going to go buy a piece of clothing or a copier or whatever. You gotta what's the competition?
Know what's going on?
Because trust me, we do it. We're getting on reviews every day when we go buy anything. You want to find out what's the competition, what's the review of that product or service, and they know that we're doing it, so they better know their competition. Because that's the first question I ask when I'm trying to gauge a purchase. I said, well, what about this guy who sells this? What makes you better than them? You're a coach. Okay, you coach businesses on sales. Okay, well, what makes you better than this coach? There's a million coaches out there on sales. So what makes you better than them? And so know your competition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I know you also said have an exit strategy early on when coming into any business.
Yeah, right when you start a business, you kind of really have to start from the back end and move forward to it. So in other words, figure out how many years you want to stay in business.
Which is not the norm, right? I mean, most people do not do this.
No, most people, they get out of college and it's funny, I'll go on a caveat here. When I give speeches, I ask everybody from the crowd, I said, how many people went to college? Most people raise their hands. I say, how many people are currently working in your major field of study? It's about 3 or 4 out of 100 every single time.
Yeah, we've always changed.
then I say, what don't they teach us in school? And someone from the crowd, it's kind of a directed
Yeah.
question where they're direct response question. So they always respond, how to make money. What if you have it, don't have it, how to manage it, budget it, balance your checkbook, do your taxes, shelter taxes, start a business, invest in anything. Yet when we graduate on whatever level we graduate from, what do we have to be the best at? Making money. And so no, people don't get that part of it. So you have to learn what you learn in school, which is great. It's great to have an education, but most people don't do a whole lot with it. They get a job right when they graduate because they need money, and then they start growing in that particular job, which creates a profession and a career for them on a lot of circumstances, which is great. It's fine, as long as you love what you do. It's not really about money. Success has nothing to do with money. It has to do with, do you love what you do? If you don't love what you're doing, do not do it. And then you build and you build and you build from there. But if you start at the back end, you think, okay, if you want to start a business, the best way to approach it is, okay, will this business make me $225,000 a year in income? If it doesn't, don't even think about it. It's a waste of your time.
Right.
Period. So then you figure out how much you want to make, what you're going to make, what your income is going to be. Look at the projections, what your sales are going to be like over X period of time, whether you want to get out of it in 5 years, because you're going to treat a business differently if you're going to only own it for 5 years as opposed to 30 years. It's going to be a whole different ballgame. And you got
why? What's going to be different?
Well, the different are building up. Well, your branding is going to be different. Your sales platforms are going to be different. Your sales approaches are going to be different. Your focus is going to be different because you're reaching a goal in a shorter period of time, which is going to have a different type of a pattern or path than if you were to grow it over time, because you're going to have to be spending money differently as well and spending marketing dollars differently as well. So figure out what that is. But regardless, with 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, however many years, you got to pick your exit strategy. What's that going to be first? So you know how to get out of it. And you have to figure that out from the very beginning, because you're going to be building and creating your accounting system and your books based upon that year-end number and that goal that you really want to achieve. So, okay, once it makes me this amount of money at this point, I'm done. So whether it's this amount of money or this amount of years, figure out what that is, figure your exit strategy. And then, hey, if you reach it, fantastic. Then decide if you want to do it again. Then create a new exit strategy. Oh,
sure.
Fantastic, loved it, successful at it. 5 more years, let me keep doing this, or whatever you want to do. But you have to have one, because if you have a good exit strategy and you build it up with all your books and all your accounting and all your sales and all the financial part of it, then it's easier to sell that way. You turn to a business broker and say, okay, here it is. I built it to this point, and this was my path, and we reached every goal since day one.
Yeah. Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah, no, it does drastically change how you're going to approach the business and the actions that you take. It's kind of like just going and exercising at the gym versus, for me personally, if I sign up for a half marathon 6 months from now, well, the actions that I'm going to take to get there is going to be a lot more intentional, and now I have accountability. I think that's a fantastic point.
Absolutely, because the business is worth 3 to 5 times its gross sales. That might be played around with a little bit by some people and disagree with that. Some agree with it, but that's typically the formula that we go by. 3 to 5 times its gross sales, you can sell your business for that amount of money. So if you build up to 500,000 a year in sales, you ought to be able to sell for $1.5 million.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah. So in our pre-call, I asked you what you were most proud of as a CEO, and you said freedom.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to what I said a minute ago, where success is not measured by the dollar. If you don't like what you're doing, do not do it. I gave this speech this one time, and this gentleman comes up to me, and he's bawling his eyes out when I'm done speaking, comes up to the stage. And I said, why are you crying? And he said, well, he goes, because I'm a coal miner. He says, I take naps against the wall. I take lunches. When I walk, I eat. I see light 1 hour a day. I said, I'm going to ask you the same question again. Why are you crying? Because I just told you. I said, listen, don't you dare complain about what you do. I said, the people that come home and sit down at their dinner table with their friends and their family, and they say, oh, I hate my job. I hate my boss. I don't make enough money. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. You've got no right to do that. I looked at the guy. I said, you chose it. if you don't like what you're doing, do not do it.
Yeah.
And he quit the very next day. And,
Wow.
constantly reaches out and says, you changed my life. I said, no, you changed your life. You just need to be pushed off the fence a little bit. And that's all that really takes, And some people make the decision to do a certain job, but what do they base that decision on? And figure out when you want to do something, whether it's a job or a career, then figure out what's your motivation. Is it money? Is it freedom? Is it control? Is it success? Is it profitability? Whatever it might be, and then drive towards that particular plan of action, and figure out what it is you love doing. Because again, I think number one is freedom, and you're going to get freedom with what you do only and only if you love what you do. If you don't love it, you're not going to have the freedom.
What does freedom mean to you?
Freedom to me is really about time, I think, because time is a key factor in our life that people just throw away, and they don't take advantage of it, number one, and they take it for granted, number two. And suddenly they've worked 50 years of their life. Now they got a retirement program set up, or what do you have? You look back, wow, I missed this, and this, and this, and that. And freedom is about enjoying your life and its quality of life. That's what freedom is. It's quality of life. And hey, if you love what you do and that's your quality of life, then that's perfectly fine. But don't start complaining about it, because that's no quality of life and that's no freedom.
Man, I love it. So many great nuggets. Dan, I want to take a few minutes. First of all, great to have you on the show. You have just a wealth of experience, not only in business entrepreneurship, but also speaking in front of a ton of people, over 1 million people. That's amazing. I want to take a couple minutes and summarize some of my key takeaways from today. One is, if you don't have a revocable living trust, get one. And I 100% agree. So many tax advantages to that. You kind of talked about the speaking, and it didn't even really hit me until as you were kind of talking, but so many leaders and CEOs, even if you're not going to be a professional speaker, getting educated on how to really organize your thoughts and really learn the science and the art of being able to speak in front of a lot of people will dramatically improve your career and your business. And so I just really want to emphasize that. And thank you for kind of talking about that. And I highly recommend Dan. The other thing is, know your competition, and have an exit strategy early on. You'll be a lot more intentional. It sounds like you'll be a lot more intentional about your actions, and you'll be able to achieve goals much sooner. And the last thing, which I thought was just found, freedom's my favorite word, man. Everything I do in my life supports freedom, and so I love to hear you say that. And basically, freedom is you'll never get it if you don't love what you do. And so, yeah, fantastic. So let me ask, if there was one takeaway, Dan, that you would like the audience to really absorb, what would that be?
We've used the word goals a couple of times in our podcast here. So it's one of my quotes. It's my best quote that I love the most. Don't ever make a goal. Goals are made to be broken. Make a plan. Plans are made to be achieved.
Love it. Love it. Thank you for sharing that. Dan, if any of our listeners want to reach out and either get involved with your speaking course or follow up with you for any questions, how can they do that?
Yeah, you can either go to my website at terrificspeakers.com. You can also search me on the internet, daneckelman.com, to my personal website. My finance website, taxing website is Dane Wealth, which is my first name and last initial, DANE, wealth.com. Those are the best ways to get a hold of me and find me. Pretty much all over the internet there. So
cool. And we'll have Dan's LinkedIn profile on the the podcast page. So Dan, thanks for being on the show, man.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It's a great time.
Absolutely. So for the audience, please hit the like and subscribe button and help us spread the word about what we're doing. We are helping the next generation of CEOs and leaders be that much more successful. With that, we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks a lot.
You're good.